I think that Trump honestly thought that if he could talk with Putin, if he could work with Putin, that he could ultimately convince him to do the right thing. And he wanted to test that approach. And as a result of that, I think he now knows that the bottom line is you cannot trust Putin, and that Putin will continue to do what he wants to do, and that the only thing Putin understands is force, not talk, force.
Hello and welcome to Independence Avenue Media. I'm Kartol Sharashenidze, and today we are joined by an extraordinary guest, Secretary Leon Panetta, who served as U.S. Secretary of Defense, CIA Director, White House Chief of Staff. His leadership shaped U.S. national security during key moments. Today we are discussing U.S.-Russia, U.S.-Ukraine relations during the ongoing war. Secretary Panetta, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Let me start with the 50-day deadline President Trump gave Russia to agree to a ceasefire. So what are your expectations for day 51 if Russia fails to meet these deadlines? So with secondary sanctions and tariffs on the table, what do you think would be the most effective response if Russia ignores it?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And you should understand that, having worked as director of the CIA and then as Secretary of Defense, the primary approach I took to Putin and Russia was to never trust Putin on anything. And I believe that's the case today. And I think the president ought to be very careful about trusting Putin on anything he says. I think that the best course of action right now in the Ukraine is to provide the weapons that the Ukrainians need in order to effectively defend themselves, and to make clear to Putin that he cannot succeed in Ukraine. That should be the most important message we can send Putin. You will not succeed, and we will do everything we can to make sure that you will not succeed. That's the message he needs to hear if we're ever going to be able to find a way to negotiate some kind of peaceful solution to Ukraine. It has to be done by a position of strength against Putin, not weakness, but strength.
Do you believe the current administration is sending that kind of clear message to Vladimir Putin, or do you expect to see a stronger stance going forward?
Well, I've been pleased by the fact that although it's taken a while, that the president understands that he cannot trust Putin's word. After all, he was pushing for a ceasefire. Zelensky agreed to the ceasefire. Putin refused to accept a ceasefire. He kept stalling, he kept talking, but he never was willing to accept a ceasefire because Putin basically thinks that he should be able to do whatever he wants in order to succeed in Ukraine. So I think the president understands now that Putin is not somebody you can trust, and that if you're going to deal with Putin, the only thing he understands is not words, but action. And if the president can, as he is now, proceed to provide the weapons that Ukraine needs, particularly Patriot missiles, in order to defend his country. And secondly, that we continue to put pressure on Putin to recognize that he has no other choice but to eventually sit down and try to negotiate some kind of ceasefire in Ukraine. So it's going to take both. It's going to take pushing on the diplomatic side, but also showing that we're going to do everything we can to try to support Ukraine in this war.
President Trump's plan also includes supplying weapons to Ukraine, but with the cost primarily covered by NATO and the EU member states, right? So how do you see this idea of shared responsibility, and how realistic is it in terms of meeting Ukraine's immediate needs?
Well, I think from Ukraine's perspective, any way they can get the weapons they need, they ought to be willing to try to work with it. And I think this approach works. NATO is more unified than ever. NATO understands that it must remain a strong alliance, not only to confront Putin, but to confront other threats in Europe. So I believe that that the approach now of working with NATO, allowing them to receive the weapons and then provide them to Ukraine works. I think any way that works right now is what we ought to put in place. And at the same time, I think the president ought to continue to put pressure on Russia about economic sanctions. The Senate has been willing to pass a strong sanctions bill. Trump has talked about that, but I really think that the time has come for sanctions to be put in place in order to double the pressure on Putin.
I mean, how quickly can the US and its NATO allies deliver weapons to Ukraine, especially when coordination is required between multiple countries, right? So is there a faster, more direct method to getting those systems into Ukrainian hands?
I think so. I think it's happening as we speak. I think Patriot missiles have been provided to our allies in NATO, and the president has said we will send more to them. It always takes time, too much time sometimes. But the fact that they're now getting those weapon systems, the fact that they're able to put them in place, the more we can continue to expand providing those weapon systems to Ukraine, I think the better position we will be in order to get Putin to understand very clearly that under no circumstances are we going to allow him to succeed. That's the message he needs to hear, loud and clear.
Serdar Banda, you mentioned as a CIA director, your approach to Vladimir Putin was to never trust him, right? So based on that experience, what do you think? How will the US and the West understands Putin's mindset and strategy, especially after more than 2 decades in power, right? So, and can this understanding help Washington to find the right balance between pressure and diplomacy, toward Russia?
Yeah, I think the intelligence community has understood Putin for a long time. I can remember when I was director, and I was in discussions with my Russian counterpart about trying to see if there were ways we could work together on issues. That I had many at the CIA that said, don't waste your time, because they simply did not trust the Russians. So the intelligence community understands who they're dealing with. I think that Trump honestly thought that if he could talk with Putin, if he could work with Putin, that he could ultimately convince him to do the right thing. And he wanted to test that approach. And as a result of that, I think he now knows that the bottom line is you cannot trust Putin, and that Putin will continue to do what he wants to do. and that the only thing Putin understands is force, not talk, force. And for the United States to be very clear that we are going to provide the weapons, we're going to support Ukraine, we're going to work with our allies to make sure that they get the help that they need. I think that kind of very clear message is what Putin needs to hear right now. So I feel much more confident about policymakers in Washington now understanding that if you want to deal with Putin, you better deal with him from strength. Because if Putin senses weakness, he will take advantage of it. That's his history. That's what he does. And the result is that we have to be very strong at this moment in time.
As a former Secretary of Defense, what do you think a realistic and sustainable security setup for Ukraine should look like after the war ends? And what kind of guarantees will be necessary to prevent future Russian aggression?
I think we have to send a very clear message. I mean, I realize that both Zelensky and Putin ultimately have to negotiate an approach here if they're ever going to get a ceasefire in Ukraine. But I think it ought to be made very clear to Putin that if there is some kind of ceasefire or resolution to the war, that the United States will continue to support, along with our NATO allies, the security of Ukraine. And that even though there may be a ceasefire, that if Russia tries to do the same thing in the future, they will again be met by force.
Let me shift to China's role, if I may. Given its strong relationship with Moscow during the Russia's war against Ukraine, so what steps should the US take to limit China's support for Russia? So do you see President Trump's current administration taking a different approach to China in contrast to his first term?
Well, we'll have to see how it plays out, but I think that it should be clear to the White House that whatever message we send to Putin is the same message we have to send to Xi in China, which basically means that if Xi tries to invade Taiwan and take over Taiwan, that the United States will respond along with our allies to support Taiwan. That's the message that Xi needs to hear. Look, these are autocracies. Both China and Russia and North Korea, for that matter, have been trying to work together. North Korea has been providing troops to Russia. China has been trying to help Russia as well, militarily and economically. So we understand that we're dealing with autocracies here who are trying to work together. I think the message to autocracies like China and Russia and North Korea is that the United States will work together with our allies to confront any threat from those countries. And that's why it's important that we have a strong NATO. That's why we need to work with our Pacific allies, South Korea, Japan, Australia, India, others, to make very clear to China that they are not just going to be met by the United States, they're going to be met by the United States and our allies in terms of preventing them from any kind of aggression in that part of the world.
Let me move to another region, the South Caucasus. Considering Russia's war in Ukraine, Moscow's influence seems to be weakening in parts of the region, right? So what do you see Washington's policy toward South Caucasus should be? And why is this region important for the United States?
I think Russia has hurt itself badly as a result of getting into this war. I think Putin thought initially he could invade Ukraine, and within a few days, Ukraine would collapse. That didn't happen. And frankly, it was a surprise to a lot of intelligence officials because they thought that Putin uh, and the Russian army would be strong enough to be able to do that. That didn't happen. Russia's paid a price. They've lost a lot of Russian soldiers in this war. They've paid a price in terms of their economy. They've paid a price in terms of their strength. And as a consequence of that, I think Russia is weaker today than it was on the day it tried to start this war against Ukraine. Having said that, again, I don't think we can ever underestimate Putin and what he'll try to do. We didn't think he was going to invade Ukraine. He did. We didn't think he was going to take Crimea. He did. We cannot afford to underestimate him. And so I think the countries of NATO, the countries of Europe have to always be vigilant about making sure that they're doing everything necessary to provide a strong defense against any kind of Russian aggression, period.
Secretary Panetta, this is my very last question. So many in Washington say the administration's foreign policy seems more transactional than strategic. Do you see it the same way?
I think that happens every time we change administrations in this country. That new administrations come in and they have to look at the world, they have to look at policies and decide what their position is going to be. And I think, Trump has gone through that. And I think Trump initially thought that somehow the United States could withdraw from the rest of the world, that we could withdraw from our alliances. We could just take care of our own country. But what he found out is that's not the case. You can't do that. The United States cannot just simply withdraw from the world. We saw that in the Middle East. United States initially did not want to get involved in a war in the Middle East, but because of what Iran did, because of what it was threatening to do, because of the fact that it was trying to become a nuclear power, it was clear the United States would have to take action, and we did. We took action. And I think Trump now understands that the world is not the way we would like it to be. The world is what it is. The reality is we have to understand the world we live in. It's a dangerous world. It's dangerous because of Russia. It's dangerous because of China. It's dangerous because of North Korea, Iran. It's dangerous because of terrorists. And as a result of that, because we live in a dangerous world, the United States is going to have to provide world leadership. We're going to have to work with our allies. We are going to have to be strong in order to make sure that we protect our values and our beliefs rather than those that would try to destroy democracies in the future.
Well, Secretary Panetta, thank you so much again for your time. It was a great honor to have you with us today. Thank you.
It's good to be with you. Take care.
Thank you.